and the government is running for cover. And here, I suppose here is the irony, that the left seems to have got control of the government because of the threat from the right. The right now being the populist right, the Nigel Farage right. And I think this is a very important moment, actually, in the electoral cycle, because I think this series of announcements and hints about the winter fuel allowances, about the two-child benefit cap, the hints that the government are going to back down on the toughish policies that they'd had, I think is a disastrous moment for the government. I mean, they have an absolutely massive majority. And if a government with a massive majority cannot do something to reform all the things that we know are wrong in Britain, you know, the police, the prisons, social security, the National Health Service, we all know these things are wrong. And the government, having put a tentative toe into the water, has given up in well under a year since it's been elected. So we're not going to see any social security reform. In fact, what we're seeing now is promises to increase social security spending, welfare spending, whereas I think we know that these budgets ought to be cut. And that means inevitably that we're going to see higher taxes. And we're into that spiral, higher public spending, higher taxes. That means people will have less money to spend for themselves. That means demand in the economy goes down. That means that the economy ceases to grow. And that means you have to have more social security benefits and more tax increases. It's deeply depressing. By the way, I'm as depressed about reform as I am about Labour, in the sense that, you know, if reform is likely to become a government, and if reform were likely to come to power, pledged to increase social security spending, welfare spending, then let us all kiss goodbye to any idea that we're going to get towards a more enterprising economy.
This was my question. I can understand completely why Farage wants to back pensioners who are choosing between so-called heating and eating this winter. That makes perfect sense to me. Why would he advocate a policy which puts the benefit bill up when we know that reform supporters are angered by the notion of there being 9 million inactive people in the UK today? I think that they think a lot of people are gaming the benefit system.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think it's tough being a populist.
Yes, well, you've got to be popular all the time.
If you're a populist, you don't know, what sort of popularity to chase at any one moment. Do you, as you say, do you chase the people who are fed up with welfare benefits, or do you chase the people who are anxious for more welfare benefits? I mean, the fact is that, it makes it a very unstable party. It's not I'm talking about reform here, not a party that one can particularly put one's trust in. But anyway, I suppose Farage might argue that the short-term impact, anyway, of promising to put up social security benefits, the short-term impact is to destroy the economic policy and economic credibility of the government.
Yes.
And I think that is now in tatters.
Well, you might say that they don't really need any help in that. Moving on to story two, we've got this strange situation with Keir Starmer being pulled in two different directions by two senior female cabinet ministers.
Yes.
On one hand, Angela Rayner wanting yet more tax, despite you pointing out record levels of government tax and spend. Then you've got Rachel Reeves in an enormous pickle. Several newspapers this morning, including the Mail on Sunday, are talking about her having to abandon the fiscal rules that she promised beyond all doubt to stick to.
She has three fiscal rules, which I'm not going to recite, and the chances are that she's going to breach one, two, or all three of them. And this is terrible for her credibility. But in any case, even without fiscal rules, she had portrayed herself as an iron chancellor, and that was demonstrated by the winter fuel allowance cuts, and it was demonstrated by sticking to the child benefit cap for two, and it was demonstrated by making some rather paltry reductions to the increase in the welfare bill. Now, all of that seems to be out of the window. I think she is finished.
Do you?
Well...
But then he can't oust her, because then he kind of almost makes himself redundant.
No, exactly. That's what I'm coming to. When I say finished, I don't mean necessarily that she'll leave office, but she'll be in office without credibility.
Yes.
And I think what Keir Starmer doesn't appreciate is that a Prime Minister who's in office with a Chancellor who has no authority is effectively not a Prime Minister either. So I think it does seriously imperil the Prime Minister as well. And what do I mean by that? Again, I mean certainly one thing, which is the loss of credibility, and possibly the second thing, which is it's difficult to hold on to office if your credibility is gone. But I think this is a signal moment in the government. It has been tested. We have tested the material that claimed to be ferrous, the Iron Chancellor, and it's turned out to be plywood.
No, very well put. Before we get on to Tory leadership, because Kemi Badenoch is coming into the studio a little later, just on the leadership issue for Labour, if he were to be ousted, and actually Labour aren't into regicide as the Tories are, but just theoretically, who's the biggest threat? Is it Rayner or is it somebody like Wes Streeting?
I mean, Rayner is making all the running at the moment. I'm also very disappointed in Wes Streeting. You know, there was someone who told me he was going to come in and deal with the National Health Service, and for a moment I got my hopes up. But I don't think he's done very much. Rayner is doing all the running. She's just been on another channel saying that she absolutely is not going to be Labour leader, blah, blah, blah. But she sounded cock-a-hoop.
Yes.
Everything.
She likes the attention, doesn't she?
I mean, even if she's not leader, her policies are now running the government.
Yes. Can I just point out that we did invite her onto this show, and in the future we look forward to inviting her on the show again
that
and
was
speaking
delightful,
to her
wouldn't
in
it?
our typically robust way. Let's move on to the Tories. Tim Shipman's written a really interesting piece for the Sunday Times where he's basically saying that, I think he's saying that he's got 2 former cabinet ministers and 3 serving MPs saying she must go.
You know that the local election results are an absolute disaster. According to polling, of those who voted Conservative last year, and that was a disastrous result, that July the 4th, of those who voted Conservative last year, only 48% are voting Conservative today.
Yes.
I mean, these figures are absolutely deplorable. 16% in the opinion polls, 4th position in the opinion polls, behind 3 other parties. Her position is very, very, very bleak, and clearly people are on manoeuvres. Now, I was saying consolation to her. I have no reason to believe that anyone else would do a better job.
No.
I have no idea what Conservatives could say that would be credible to anyone.
No.
And this is because of their record in government, which is still very recent. If one reads to the end of the article that you've just alluded to, we start talking about Boris. I mean, Boris.
Bring
who
back
let in
Boris, who's
more
just
than...
had a 4th child. No, sorry, 9th child, but 4th with Carrie Johnson.
Well, that doesn't stop him being leader of the Conservative Party. But I think the fact that he let in more than 900,000 net immigrants, I think that does stop him
But
being
that
the
piece
Conservative
does
leader.
say that if he does want to stage a comeback, he needs to do a speech where he shows regret for the fact that he basically advocated porous borders. Is that going to save him? I mean...
No, of course it's not, because this is about trust, isn't it? I mean, we've got to the point where the Conservatives have sort of admitted that they did things badly, but the worst things they did, by the measure of what's now the most important issue, which is immigration, the worst thing they did was under Boris Johnson.
Yes.
I mean, Rishi got it back a bit at the end.
Yeah.
The benefit that the government's getting at the moment of reduced net immigration is actually from measures that were taken under Rishi.
Absolutely.
So Rishi
James
looks pretty...
Cleverly's taking credit, and so is Keir Starmer, which is curious.
But anyway, the fact is that Boris was the worst in that respect.
The other problem with that approach as well is the whole Kemi Badenoch shtick is, well, we're under new leadership, we're under new management, things are going to be different next time round. There's no way Johnson can say that.
Indeed not. And I don't think there's much danger that people have forgotten him either. I mean, he's an enormously charismatic figure. But you may remember that despite being charismatic, despite winning a great election victory, I dare say he might win another election victory. But, you know, half the Conservative members of Parliament hate his living guts. And when he was last in office, they got rid of him.
Would you want to recruit him if you were Nigel Farage, finally?
If I were Nigel Farage, no, because Nigel Farage can't work with anybody else. If I were a sort of a more reasonable version of Nigel Farage, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
would you? You'd be more effective in reform, do you think?
Well,
reaching the parts that others Conservatives can't.
All I mean is that he is an absolutely star player, Boris, isn't he? I mean, there is a man who conjures majorities out of thin air. There was a man who was mayor of London for 2 terms.
So you saying
there's hardly a Conservative seat in London.
So the barrier is more the Conservative MPs that hate him, not necessarily the electorate. Although he's a Marmite figure to the electorate, even on the right?
Correct. If we had a presidential system, I think there's a pretty good chance that Boris would win a presidential election. By the way, there's also a very good chance that Nigel would win it. They're two big figures, aren't they?
And it might be some people's dream team, you know, Farage and Johnson. Could they do it, though? This is the thing.
I very much doubt it.
Could either relinquish the limelight?
No, because Farage is streets ahead at the moment. He doesn't like working with anybody else. He's not good at working with anyone else.
And he'll argue, I don't need to. I don't need Boris.
And that may well be true.
Michael Portillo, you're back at 11. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. Fabulous stuff. Well, coming up next, I'm going to get Labour's perspective on what has been quite an extraordinary week with the EU deal, the Chagos giveaway, winter fuel U-turns, problems in Albania, Rayner versus Reeve, and everything else. So I'll be speaking to the Labour MP for Hales Owen, Alex Ballinger. He's going to be joining me. Don't go anywhere. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Looking further afield, there's plenty of sunshine on offer and it's going to be feeling warm too across Europe with a few showers around. Now, it is going to be breezy across Madeira and the Canary Islands and running down the coast of Portugal, but otherwise plenty of fine and settled and warm weather around. There'll be a few showers, especially out towards the east, but otherwise temperatures ranging to the mid to high 20s, and that's similar throughout much of the week. Plenty of sunshine on offer, highs of 27.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns. Coming soon. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Joining me now is the Labour MP for Hales Owen, Alex Ballinger. Mr. Ballinger, thanks so much for joining me on a Sunday morning. Great to speak to you, I think, for the first time on the show. Good morning. Good morning. Can we talk about the Chagos deal? Because I'm intrigued. Your background's obviously in the military. You were a former Royal Marine. You can't be happy about this deal deep down, despite, I'm sure, your obvious loyalty to the Prime Minister. It's a £30 billion cost to the taxpayer to give Mauritius something that we own. So we're paying to have something taken from us. It doesn't make any sense. If anything, we should be getting some money, shouldn't we?
Thanks, Camilla, and it's great to be on the show. Yeah, as you say, as a former Royal Marine and someone that worked for the Foreign Office for a long time, I know how important this base is for our national security. So it has a big runway, really important deep water port, lots of communications surveillance devices there that are essential for our security in the Indo-Pacific. So it's vital that we keep hold and secure the operations of the base. This is why the last government started to negotiate with Mauritius to keep hold of the base. They went through 11 rounds of negotiations. In fact, Camilla Badenoch said back in February that she understands the negotiations over the islands are needed due to the international legal position. So we've done a good deal. It's £3.4 billion is the number that all the civil service organisations are recognising.
That's not correct, is it? Hang on, we must nail this down. No, it's not. 3.4 billion has been said as an interim cost, but over the course of the entire deal, it's going to be costing the taxpayer 30 billion. And that's a figure that hasn't been denied by the government and has been verified by various different journalists who have actually drilled into the data. So let's not pretend it's 3.4 billion, because it isn't.
It is 3.4 billion. That's
Are you denying the 30 billion figure?
I'm saying the way that civil service calculates the cost of these things means that it costs us 3.4 billion. It's how we compare it to other projects. It's 0.2% of the defence budget.
Let's give the real cost. Let's give the real cost. Let's not muck about here. We know the civil service figure, but over the course of the deal, it's going to cost the taxpayer £30 billion. Are you denying that figure? Because the government isn't.
So I'm saying that the calculations that are used, the way that we assess the value of these things is 3.4 billion. The way we compare it to running an aircraft carrier, or the way we compare it to running other parts of our defence expenditure, the way that that is calculated
This is a
means
deal
it's going to cost us 3.4 billion.
No, that's just a fudge. This is a deal that's going to go on for decades. I'm sorry, Mr. Ballinger. The government hasn't denied the £30 billion figure. So over the course of this deal, in the long run, it's going to cost the taxpayer £30 billion, isn't it?
I think the important thing is it's going to cost us less than 0.2% of the defence budget. It's going to cost us less than a similar deal that the French agreed for a much smaller base in Africa. And it's going to cost us, in fact, less than the cost of the PPE that was wasted during the mismanaged COVID pandemic. So it is a good deal. It's essential for our national security.
We'll be saying we shouldn't be spending any money at all giving away our own sovereign territory to Mauritius, not least, and from a military perspective, I'd be really intrigued by your response to this, when there is a clause in the deal saying that the UK is to inform Mauritius of any warlike activity conducted from it. Now, defence and security experts are now worried that Mauritius might pass on information to their friends in China and Russia. That's hugely concerning, isn't it?
I think that's a complete mischaracterisation. Mauritius is a Commonwealth ally. They agree with us that China is a threat. There are clauses built into the contract that specifically exclude countries like China and Russia from developing anything anywhere near the base. The checks that the contracts have gone through the American system. I might say the Americans, the Australians, the Canadians, the New Zealanders, they've all welcomed this deal because they know how vital it is for the Five Eyes intelligence sharing operations in the Indo-Pacific. So it's not right to say that Mauritius is a threat. They are a close friend of ours. They are not associated with China. They're an ally of India more than any other country.
And yet the person who was sitting on the ICJ when this was kind of floated and Lord Hermer and others suddenly decided this was a great idea, this Chagos giveaway, is a member of the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, I'm not aware of that, I'm afraid. But as I say, the negotiations have been checked off by the Americans, by the Trump administration, through all of the interagency process. That includes all of the American security agencies. And they're happy with the deal. They're happy it secures our interests in the area from countries like China and Russia.
Let's move on to domestic matters. Do you think the winter fuel cut should be reversed, Mr. Ballinger?
Well, I think we're in a different situation than we were a year ago. You'll remember, of course, the awful economic inheritance that we had, the public finance gap, the broken public services. So we had to make some difficult decisions then to ensure that our public finances were in good order. Now, we're seeing some really good economic news that the 3 trade deals that we've agreed with the US, India and the EU, they've warmly been welcomed by businesses. And the start of this year, we're now the fastest growing economy in the G7. I mean, that's faster than America, Canada, France, Germany. So we're doing really well. And I think it's important that people recognise and get some of that growth.
Let's just caveat that. First of all, that was Q1 growth and it didn't take into account what's being described as awful April. Second of all, we've just seen inflation fly up to 3.5%. So economically, we're not really in a different place to what we were before Rachel Reeves's budget, which has been widely panned by most economists. So actually, if he does reverse the winter fuel cut, it's got nothing to do with the economy at all and everything to do with political expediency. He's realised that it is a universally disastrous and hated policy that's on a par in popularity stakes with the poll tax.
I think you're right, it was unpopular. But the reason we're now able to consider reversing part of the winter fuel allowance is because the economy is doing better. There are businesses championing the trade deals that we've got over the last couple of months. Almost every supermarket, the Confederation of British Industry, up and down the country, in my area, automotive manufacturers, defence manufacturers are really welcoming the deals we've got, the growth that they're going to make and the contribution that gives to the exchequer to allow us to make sure that some pensioners receive this winter fuel allowance again.
I mean, we have also got record numbers of businesses closing and a record low in businesses starting. But let's move on to the 2-child benefit cap. Should that be lifted? Because Nigel Farage seems to think so.
Well, I think it's important when you hear what Nigel Farage says is the promises that he made during the election have been completely uncosted. There's £100 billion of uncosted spending in the Reform Manifesto. And that's more than the amount of money that Liz Truss was spending during the disastrous mini-budget. So I think there's some real questions that Reform have to answer around how they're going to pay for these things, how they're going to pay for all these promises that they're going to make without crashing the economy.
But what do you think? Because this is being tabled by a number of your colleagues. So we're now in the frame, apparently, of Labour considering lifting that 2-child cap. What do you think? Is it affordable? Is it a good idea with the benefits bill already sky high?
Well, that's the important question, Camilla. Is it affordable? Have we grown the economy enough to enable us to pay for these things? Because, of course, a Labour government cares deeply about poverty. We care a lot about reducing the poverty on children across the country, which is why we're focusing on energy bills, bringing down energy bills. We're focusing on getting more unemployed parents back into the workforce, and we're really focusing on building more affordable and social housing. But I think if there's an opportunity to pay for it, if the economic signs are looking better, we should be considering things like improving the 2-child benefit cap, if we can afford it and if that is good for our economic stability.
If taxes have to go up at the next budget in the autumn, as is being predicted, because you might reverse winter fuel cuts and so on and so forth, and equally we've got rumours today in the papers that Rachel Reeves is going to have to abandon her fiscal rules. After all, she hasn't got enough headroom. What are the good people of Hales Owen going to think, Mr Ballinger?
Well, of course, nobody wants to raise taxes, which is why our focus is ruthlessly on growing the economy. While all of those things that I've been talking about, all of these trade deals that we've agreed that are going to benefit manufacturing businesses in the West Midlands, in the Hales Owen, are going to allow us to invest more in public services without raising taxes.
Could you rule out tax cuts when you go around the doorsteps of Hales Owen? Can you say to constituents taxes won't go up because we're at a record tax high anyway, 38% of GDP by the end of this Parliament?
Well, I don't want taxes to go up. Of course, we don't know what sort of things can happen internationally. There's been a lot of crises recently that have caused all sorts of changes to the economy. But I think the country is doing everything it can to protect working people, which is why in the budget, working people were protected from any tax rises that we had to make.
All right. Mr Ballinger, thank you so much for your time this morning. Great to speak to you.
Thanks, Camilla.
Thank you. Well, coming up next, I'm going to be speaking to Kemi Badenoch, who's going to be here in the studio to discuss her own leadership as it comes into question in today's morning newspapers. And I'll also be speaking to Trump's very right-hand man, Jason Miller. All that to come in just a jiffy. Don't go anywhere.
could be driving away with this brand new Elneg Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky-roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Now, NHS trusts are being told to prioritise ethnic minority applicants for interview shortlists, and they justify hiring white British candidates. Now, the official guidance says at least one BAME candidate must be shortlisted, even if white candidates are better qualified. And one NHS trust admitted using positive discrimination to decide who even gets an interview. Now, managers are also told to use race as a tiebreaker, and guess who wins in that case? And to explain themselves if the hire isn't from a minority background. Now, some won't even move forward unless it's a non-white candidate is in the mix altogether. Now, all this while NHS backlogs are hitting record highs. What a carry-on. Dr. Mukherjee, let's start with you. When you look at the naked truth here, there must be BAME candidates on shortlists. You have to justify hiring white British candidates, and a tiebreaker, a toss of the coin. If there's an ethnic minority and a white person, the job will be given to the ethnic minority. Do you think that's racist?
That is racist. And it goes against the fundamentals of the NHS, which is about patient care and quality of care. And as a patient myself, I mean, I know I'm a doctor myself, but by all means, I pay taxes, and you all do as well. We want to get the best quality people serving us. We don't want to be paying money towards some sort of diversity hire just to tick a box. That doesn't serve the purpose. I don't think I would want to be, and I'm a person of colour myself, I don't think I would want to be a diversity hire. I think it's a bit of an insult, really, to think that of all the things I had to offer, the only thing that I have no control over, my skin colour, is what got me the job.
GB News.
Welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News. Still more to come today, lots more to come as ever. We've got Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch. She's going to join me in the studio. What does she make of the Tories sinking to their lowest ever poll rating? Behind the Liberal Democrats, would you believe? Is she about to be ousted? I will ask her that, even though that's quite an awful question to ask anybody. Former Trump senior advisor Jason Miller is going to join me in the studio as well. Can the Donald really win a Nobel Peace Prize? Plus, I'll be joined by the research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, Andrew Fox. He's got a new report out into Hamas's strategy in Gaza. And author and former GB News presenter Andrew Doyle will be here to talk about his new book, The End of Woke. What is woke? And is it at an end? We live in hope. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Camilla, thank you very much. The top stories. Nigel Farage is vowing to scrap the 2-child benefit cap and fully restore winter fuel payments to all pensioners. In a major speech next week, the Reform UK leader will take the fight to the Red Wall with new policies on welfare to win over traditional Labour voters. The commitments come after Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer faced pressure from Labour MPs to change his approach to both policies. More than 10 million pensioners lost out on winter fuel payments worth up to £300 when the pension top-up became restricted to only people receiving pension credit last year. Kemi Badenoch says winter fuel payments should be protected for vulnerable people, but withdrawn from millionaires. Developers who leave housing sites unfinished for years could see their land handed over to local councils under new rules aimed at getting new homes built faster. Under government plans, house builders will have to commit to delivery timeframes before they get planning permission and will also have to submit annual reports to councils showing their progress. The new rules form part of the government's plan to address the housing crisis with 1.5 million new homes in England by 2029. The Conservative Party said it supported measures to speed up house building, but accused the government of adding so many burdens on builders. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner says it's time for developers to roll up their sleeves and play their part. Sir Alan Bates has accused the Post Office compensation scheme of shortchanging victims. Writing in the Sunday Times, Mr Bates called it a kangaroo court, saying he was given a take-it-or-leave-it offer amounting to less than half of his original claim. It follows a years-long battle to fight for compensation after 900 sub-postmasters were wrongly prosecuted between 1999 and 2015 after faulty Horizon accounting software made it look as if money was missing from their accounts. Many are still waiting for compensation, despite the previous government saying those who had their convictions quashed were eligible for £600,000 payouts. And South Western Railway has been renationalised, making it the first train company to transfer to public ownership under Labour. The first nationalised service from Woking to Surbiton departed on time this morning at 5:36 a.m, but was partly a rail replacement bus service due to engineering works. The government hailed the move as a new dawn for rail, but it held back from promising lower fares, focusing more on plans to improve services and use profits to reinvest in infrastructure. Unions are concerned over outsourcing to private companies, while the Conservatives say Labour must deliver on their promises. South Western Railway trains are now the responsibility of the Department for Transport and will be integrated into Great British Railways. And those are the latest headlines for now. More from me in an hour. It's back to Camilla.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you for that, Tatiana. Lots more still to come today. Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch will join me in the studio shortly, plus research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society. Andrew Fox will be here to talk about his new report into Hamas's strategy in Gaza. And author and former GB News presenter Andrew Doyle will be here to talk about his new book, The End of Woke. But first, joining me now is former Trump senior advisor Jason Miller. Lovely to see you in the UK. You've had a great week, haven't you?
It's great to be here, and congratulations on the ratings. I know
Thank you very much.
GB News has put the competitors at an absolute disadvantage.
We are doing our best over here. Now, let's get stuck into some newsy items, including the announcement, I think it was yesterday, if I haven't lost track of time, that Trump is now slapping 50% tariffs on the EU. Why is he doing this? What has he got against Brussels?
Well, keep in mind, this is Brussels. You have to separate out Brussels, as the UK would know, from necessarily the rest of the European countries, from the member countries. So where President Trump has had his greatest success are the bilateral trade agreements, US-UK, whether it be US, and we're probably going to see things in other countries in Asia and South Asia and the likes. But the EU is very much controlled by these bureaucrats, these technocrats in Brussels. They're very much putting up a resistance fight. They do not want to make any concessions to the Americans, particularly when it comes to agriculture imports, when it comes to auto imports, non-tariff trade barriers. They're digging in and fighting. I think the president is sending a very clear message that if they don't come to the table, if they don't play ball, there will be ramifications.
It is all a negotiation, though, Jason. When he does these things.
But we've seen, yes, it's a negotiation. And I would say, if you look at Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, his comments saying that this was essentially a wake-up call for the EU. But the president, as we've seen, has not been afraid to push forward on a number of these. So my recommendation to the EU is get smart here.
Also, on Chagos, it's got a few people scratching their heads over here. Why was Trump happy with us giving away our own sovereign territory to Mauritius, which is in turn linked to China? Obviously, Diego Garcia, extremely important from a strategic perspective to the US. There's a clause in this deal that says that we must share defence and security information with Mauritius as a given. Then that might fall into the hands of Beijing. You never know. There was some Chinese Communist Party involvement in the ICJ, which recommended this giveaway anyway. Why isn't he more concerned?
Well, to be clear on this one point, I'm not speaking on behalf of the president or even the U.S. ambassador to the UK, Warren Stevens, but I would say that I believe that Nigel Farage is absolutely right, that this is a terrible deal, that I don't think that this should be going forward. Now, keep in mind, when President Trump was asked about this, it was when they were announcing the UK trade deal. And my own hunch, again, having not discussed this directly with the president, is that he didn't want to upend the apple cart, so to speak, and step on the positive news on the trade development. I do not think this matter is completely done or settled yet, and nor do I think that it should be. I think this is very problematic.
OK, interesting. We also understand that President Trump has sent a delegation of State Department diplomats to discuss freedom of speech with pro-life campaigners who have come unstuck here because they've been deemed to breach sort of exclusion zones outside abortion clinics and all the rest of it. In general, we had Charlie Kirk over in the week. He spoke to Ben Leo for a great show on GB News. There seems to be this concern among you and your fellow Americans about freedom of speech in this country. What's your biggest worry?
Well, it's because you see the restrictions on free speech rights all around the world. And by the way, it's not just the UK. I think you're going to see the State Department be very active in pushing for free speech rights all around the world, and particularly in democracies where it should exist. Now, in the United States, we very much take for granted our First Amendment rights. That's the right to free speech. Literally, the First Amendment has to do with free speech. But I think in any civilized society, that you should have the ability for free speech. And even if sometimes that's stupid free speech. Now, I'm not saying that in the case of, say, Lucy Connolly, for example, that clearly what she said was completely stupid. There's no defense for it. However, 31 months in prison when you have violent people who've done just horrific acts that get out far less time, 31 months. You see some of these restrictions. And also keep in mind with President Trump, this is personal on free speech. You think about how he was deplatformed by the major social media platforms in his own political campaigns. You also look at the way they suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story. Because
we've also heard about the suppression of Biden's bad health.
Correct. Well, that one is a little bit more complicit from both his own staff and the media. But there should be free speech. There should be a fight for free speech. And I'm glad that the State Department, at President Trump's direction, is using the bully pulpit to advocate for that.
On the subject of Biden, while you're with me and we've just mentioned it, somebody in Trump's Justice Department, Leo Terrell, has suggested that Jill Biden, his wife, should possibly face criminal charges because he's pointed out elder abuse is a form of domestic violence. That's going too far, isn't it?
Love Leo. I think Leo sometimes will turn it up to 11, as they would say on Spinal Tap. And I think that's one of those. But there is some real concern. I think that you look at Biden Inc., and I say that Biden Inc. because it's been a family business for literally a better part of a half century. His brothers, his son have made ridiculous amounts of money simply by trading off access to Joe Biden. And you saw it going into 2020. Joe Biden was not all there going into 2020. As a result, 15 million plus illegals enter the country, some of the greatest inflation that we've had in the U.S. in history. We've seen Russia invade Ukraine, all aspects of weakness because Joe Biden was literally and figuratively asleep at the switch. Joe Biden was complicit in that. She was leading the cover-up. In fact, she led multiple of his cabinet meetings, which is just absolutely bizarre.
But then what action could be taken against her?
Well, that's why I don't think anything's actually going to happen. But I do think there does need to be a reckoning for anyone in Biden's circle who covered this up, because this isn't just some campaign trail rhetoric. You had people who were killed by these illegal migrants coming into the country. You have people whose businesses and families were wrecked because of the inflation. Think about the people who've died in Ukraine because of Joe Biden's weakness. The 13 service members who were killed for the disastrous withdrawal of Afghanistan. Shame on Joe Biden. Shame on his enablers. There should be some aspect of a political price. I don't know if there's necessarily a legal one.
Can you lift the lid somewhat on what the president is actually like? I mean, you've worked with him on 3 presidential campaigns. 2 went very well, 1 not so much. You've been with him in good times and in bad. What is he actually like in real life?
Determined. I don't know how he's able to do it. He's up well before I am. He goes to sleep well after I do. He's a machine, even though I believe he's at a young age of, I believe, 78 at the moment. He is an absolute machine, and he's determined. I think there are really two main things that the public misses. Number one is how much he actually cares for people. When he, say, for example, when he sees the fact that innocent Ukrainians are being killed, and he says, I want to stop the killing, that he genuinely is concerned about that. When he sees the working class Americans who are being passed over in favor of, say, globalist trade policies, that hits him at a personal level. He very much cares and feels for people. So that's very genuine. The other thing, too, is he's very funny. The sense of humor it can be biting at times. Sometimes I've been on the wrong end of that one.
I'm not sure some of his enemies would give this kind of glowing appraisal of his talents. I mean, if you speak to people like Michael Wolff, his biographer, and others that don't like him very much, they say he has no ideology. He's just a political opportunist. It's all just about the Donald. He's got this huge ego. He keeps on falling out with people. In fact, it's a miracle you've worked with him on 3 presidential campaigns and you're still in contact with the man. Many people aren't. There is this other side to him, surely, Jason.
And I don't know. If there is a 4th campaign, I'll be the first person to sign up. But I would say that, of course, the detractors are going to say something. But, to the consistency on the ideological aspect, if you go back to the 1980s, the first thing where President Trump really popped up on the radar screen was with regard to trade. And he was taking issue with the Japan-U.S. Auto trade relationship. And so that's something that he's been very consistent on. His advocacy for working class Americans, the way that he's transformed the party into the party of the working class. There's a lot of consistency there. Now, the one thing I will say that I think people sometimes conflate these two is having maximum flexibility to get deals done does not necessarily mean that you're ideologically inconsistent. It means that you know where you want to get to, and you're going to be flexible with exactly how you do it.
Can I pick you up on something you just said earlier? You kind of just snuck it into the conversation. Are you suggesting that there is a chance that he could run again in 2028? I know people have had some baseball caps made up. I thought they were just joshing the Democrats. I mean, how could that be facilitated? No president's meant to run for more than 2 terms, right?
And I would say that it's probably unlikely that happens. But if he were to do it, of course, I would sign up and do it. And I think there are a lot of folks in America who would love to see him do another term. But unfortunately, unless we're able to change the Constitution in short order, which I wouldn't have much time to go and work on that, I don't think that's going to be the case. But the president has said publicly that that's not something he's currently planning on doing.
OK, so if he doesn't run, what's your suggestion for who might be the next US president?
So I'm a massive fan of Vice President Vance. I think that he was a tremendous leader. I think there's a reason why President Trump picked him to be the vice president, because he wants to make sure that there is a strong future movement for MAGA, the Make America Great Again movement. I've been very impressed working with Vice President Vance behind the scenes. I worked with him on the campaign trail, doing debate prep, things of that nature. I think he's a genius intellect. I think he understands the changing nature of the world economy. He's also someone who comes, quite frankly, from a humble upbringing. And I think he's had
a hillbilly, self-styled.
He's had that fight. He's had to do it. So I'm a big fan.
Is he diplomatic enough, though? Many people over here don't like the way he treated President Zelensky during that unedifying Oval Office spectacle.
Well, I think President Zelensky invited a lot of that on himself. But look, JD has his own style. Vice President Vance, sorry, he's now elected, so I have to put the title in there, otherwise it'd be disrespectful. But he's very sharp. He is very good. I think if you look back to the debate that he had with Tim Walz, the way that he was able to flip the script and move to the middle and become the bipartisan centrist candidate in that debate, put Tim Walz, Kamala Harris's running mate, off to an island of being to the radical left. JD's very, very smooth in how he can do this, and I think he'd make a fantastic president.
Jason Miller, thank you very much indeed for joining me this morning.
Thank you.
Great to speak to you. Well, coming up, I'm going to be joined by the Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. I'm joined now by the leader of the Conservative Party, Camilla, who's in the studio today. Thank you very much for returning.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you. This is interesting, isn't it? Nigel Farage is going to announce on Tuesday he's going to scrap the winter fuel cut and the two-child benefit cap. Your reaction? Would you do that too?
Well, on the winter fuel, yes, we have said that. We've been voting for that in Parliament multiple times. And on Wednesday, you would have seen at PMQs, I got Keir Starmer on the hook for what looks like a partial U-turn. But definitely not on the two-child benefit cap. That's wrong. It's not a serious thing to say. That cap is there for a reason. It's not fair to allow some people to just claim more and more and more benefits for an endless number of children that they can't afford, while other people aren't having children or waiting longer because they can't afford it and are saving to be able to provide a stable environment, especially as we now have a situation where immigration is very high. There are lots of people coming to the country who become eligible for these benefits, and they have many children. I don't think that this is the time to be removing that cap. And what is really surprising is that Nigel Farage is clearly chasing Labour votes.
Yes.
We are the only credible party on the right.
I know, but you could argue that he's doing that because he's picked off enough Tories. You're down to fourth in the polls. Well, so he's hoovered up your support base, and now he's parking his tanks on Labour's lawns. And who can blame him, really?
Well, many of those people who were Conservatives will be wondering what exactly is it that they're supporting, because they voted us in when we put that benefit cap in place. That was in better economic times. We cannot afford it. Camilla, we're spending £100 billion on the interest on our debt every year. We'd cut it down every year until COVID. We need to now start making serious changes, not making promises that we can't deliver. This is the difference between me and everyone else. Lots of people will chase polls, give easy answers. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm tired of the public being lied to and hearing policies that aren't deliverable.
I know, but they say that they were lied to by the Tories, not least on immigration and tax.
Well, I wasn't in charge then. I'm in charge now. And I was somebody who fought every day to get those numbers down. We wanted high-skilled migration in small numbers. We ended up getting low-skilled migration in high numbers. And I've acknowledged the party made mistakes, but my predecessors have to own that. I'm in charge now. And what I'm saying is we're getting immigration down. We have new policies on migration, a legally binding cap, cutting that conveyor.
Do we know what that cap is going to be? Because I've asked many of your shadow cabinet ministers and no one will tell me what it is.
That is because you can't just pull a number out of the air.
But it's not going to be 350. That's been 350,000. That's been baked in by the OBR and other bodies.
Way too high. But also, we had made some changes just before we left government that brought those numbers down.
Okay.
Labour scrapped those changes.
So it's going to go up again. Tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands that you'd be happy with?
We cannot have a situation where public services are unsustainable because of the number of people coming in. We will work out what that number will be at the right time. We're 4 years out. Whatever I say now could be different, could be wrong. We may need to change it. And I don't ever want to say something, Camilla, that I have to walk back on. I don't want to make promises and then have to change them and people think that I was dishonest. We have a dishonest Labour government right now. We are the honest party.
The counter-argument to that is you should know by now what you think legal migration should be capped at because you've made the mistakes of the past. You should have learnt from them. You were in power for 14 years. Just come out with a figure. It shows a lack of confidence in your own
it's not a lack of
ability to bring
confidence. A hard cap.
down.
We've changed the policy on indefinite leave to remain so people can't just automatically stay here, get British citizenship, disapplying the Human Rights Act, making it easier to deport people. We've changed all of those policies. But the number will come. It's not confidence. It is doing things properly. Lots of people, I could throw out any number. No one would know whether it was right or wrong. Let's do things properly.
And when will you take a decision on whether you want to remain in the ECHR?
We are going to come out with a new policy on how we approach all of the lawfare.
I thought you were going to say we are going to come out. I thought we were going to do a Robert Jenrick on us.
Well, Camilla, I've said if we have to come out, we will come out. There's more than the ECHR.
Towards coming out. Can I say that? From the first time I interviewed you as leader to now, am I correct in making the observation that you are heading in the direction of leaving?
Every day I see a new case that looks like the ECHR is unsustainable.
Yes, then, isn't it?
Every day I see a new case, but it's not just the ECHR, it's the Refugee Convention and looking at so many other things. Look at this international law madness that means that Starmer's given away the Chagos Islands. It's £30 billion. You look at the memo that was sent. Why are they doing this? It's reparations. It's to apologise for decolonisation. This is British territory. We have a strategic military base there. It's going to cost us £100 million every year. That's 2,000 nurses every year that we could be having.
When you say you can tear that up and you can tear up the EU deal, EU
deal, yes, we can. When you give territory away, it's a lot harder to get it back.
What are Brussels going to say when you take that reset deal and tear it up?
But they knew that before they set it.
Can you do it legally?
Of course, we can change it. We left the EU, didn't we?
How about the Chagos deal?
We left the EU. The Chagos deal is a lot harder. When you give territory away, it's a lot harder to get it back. That is why what Keir Starmer did
in the
is
spirit
so
of
wrong
you
and
not
so immoral.
fooling the electorate, you've got to be honest. I mean, you can't say we're going to tear up the Chagos deal.
We're voting against the deal now. We're voting against the deal now. But unfortunately, there's 120 Conservative MPs. We're going to lead a lot of Labour MPs to see sense. And this is what I said. At the last election, people swapped out about 250 Tory MPs for about 5 Reform MPs. We now don't have the numbers. And we've got 70 Lib Dems as well, who are well to the left of Labour. We don't always have the numbers to overturn things, but we're going to vote against the Chagos deal. It is a horrible surrender. It's bad for the Chagosians. The islanders don't like it. We lose a strategic military base. And you know the worst bit? Mauritius, an ally of China,
I have been pointing this out this
collaborating
morning.
with Russia, should not do that.
But if you can't do anything about it, then we're stuck with
it. We can do something about it now. We are the opposition.
It's going to go through because you lost the last general election.
It's going through because Labour are making bad decisions.
Okay.
We're not the government now. I can't be held responsible for what Labour does.
You laid the foundation, like so many things. There is a credible credible argument for saying, oh, why is the welfare bill so high? Why are taxes so high? Why is immigration so high? Why have we got Labour rocket fuelling a Chagos deal? And the tentacles always lead back to the Conservatives. They lead back to 14 years of bad decision-making. What were you even doing entertaining the idea of doing a deal on Chagos?
David Cameron stopped those talks. There was an advisory ruling from a court that doesn't have jurisdiction.
Wasn't James Cleverly up to his neck in it when he was Foreign Secretary?
Who was the last Foreign Secretary? It was David Cameron. He was Foreign Secretary and he said no to that. He stopped that deal. No Conservative minister signed any deal. James Cleverly didn't. David Cameron didn't. We stopped those talks. There are always talks that happen about these sorts of things. But the point I'm making is that we were in government for 14 years. We got some things right, but towards the end we got a lot of things wrong. But I'm not responsible for those things. There were many things I tried to stop. I am the new leader, and we are changing things.
But then
what
why
we
isn't
have
it
now
doing better?
is
hang on.
Yes.
Let's just look at this, because you wrote a really hard-hitting piece for the Sunday Telegraph today, right? You point out it's been a disastrous week for Labour. We've got the EU surrender, we've got the bungled Albanian trip, which was embarrassing in Tirana, we've got the Chagos sellout, we've got the Prime Minister at 6s and 7s over the winter fuel cut, and yet, and still, you're the opposition and you're tanking 4th behind the Liberal Democrats. That must hurt.
There was a single poll, and I'm not going to deny that these are tough times, but I'm not going to be underestimated, Camilla. I remember when I moved back to this country with nothing but my dad's last £100 working at McDonald's, people constantly underestimate me and they're constantly confounded. I'm going to fight through this, but the reason why it's tough is because we're not giving the easy answers. We are telling the truth. It's very difficult when the government is tanking. They should be having a honeymoon period, and we're saying, here are the reasons why things are going wrong. You've got another party saying, we'll give you all these freebies, we'll have all these fun things. That's the challenge. But I'm going to tell the truth. The Conservative Party is here to build a real proposition to change our country. We're not going to chase polls with easy policies. I could have thrown out lots of policies to move up in the polls, but I'm not going to lie to your viewers. There are people out there, like the fishermen I met day before yesterday, they're losing their jobs, their industries are dying, energy prices are too high, inflation is up, unemployment is up. What are we going to do?
Can you only we can fix that deal with the EU?
The EU, yes. Well, we left the EU. All these sorts of negotiations you can change. The problem is, how bad will it be in 4 years? Every day that Labour is in government, they're making things harder for whoever comes in to solve it. But we are ready for that. I am ready for that.
Are you definitely going to go the distance? Tim Shipman, Sunday Times. He's spoken to 3 serving MPs and 2 former cabinet ministers thinking that you should go.
Yes, people who will not dare to put their heads above the parapet. They're all, all these people giving anonymous quotes are cowards. I'm not scared of cowards. These are the sorts of people, I said, who underestimate me. I'm fighting for this party. I'm fighting for the future of our country. We need to deliver something for our children. I want my children to grow up in a country that's better than the one that we have now. And at the moment, we are leaving a worse inheritance. Labour is mortgaging their future. That Chagos deal, that's our kids' money that they're spending. It's just wrong.
Can I make an observation? Do you think that all of your shadow cabinet are pulling their weight? I tell you why. Elizabeth, my producer, put this list together. I thought it was really interesting. You're working hard. Jenrick's working hard. Philp's out on the airwaves the whole time. So is Priti Patel. So is Andrew Griffiths. We've not heard from the following who have ever done a morning round. Rebecca Harris, Chief Whip, Mims Davis, Wales and Women, Stuart Andrew, Culture, Gareth Bacon, Claire Coutinho, Lord True, Jessie Norman. Where's Ed Argar on health? You're doing so much heavy lifting, and these people are lesser spotted.
Claire Coutinho is on maternity
Fair
leave.
enough. OK, I'll give you Claire Coutinho.
Mims Davies does loads of media in Wales. She's the shadow Welsh secretary.
I know, but
I think Gareth Bacon is actually doing a morning round this week.
Don't you feel a few of you are up front and centre of trying to bring the Conservatives back to the party?
Well, we are up front and centre with those portfolios that are really focusing on the key message. At the moment, that is immigration, so that's Chris Philp, the justice system, that's Robert Jenrick, the economy, Mel Stride, Andrew Griffith. So
and
we
Mel
are
Stride
being,
as well.
Yes, we're being very, very focused. Laura Trott's been doing an amazing job in education. Vicky Atkins has been out there fighting the family farms tax. You know, the farmers and the fishermen love her, and so many more people in the shadow cabinet that I could talk about.
So
and
you're not reshuffling?
Come. So I have a good team. I built a team based on unity. They're working hard. A lot of people don't see the work that they do, but we're constantly talking about reshuffles right now.
Are you?
Constantly throughout my time in government, people would ask me, "Oh, are you going to be reshuffled?" All this musical chairs is not what those viewers are talking about.
Ian Duncan Smith in there. I mean, he's said some lovely things about you today in the Sunday Express.
Ian Duncan Smith is a fantastic person. We are a big team. There's 120 of us. We're working very hard.
Should you bring back Boris?
So I love Boris. He sends me, lots of messages, gives me lots of advice, Ian Duncan Smith, David Cameron. I have great people who have been in this situation before, who've dealt with difficult times. So it's up to him what he wants to do. I have to focus on my job, which is making sure that Keir Starmer does not do more than the damage that he's doing right now. We have to get him out in 4 years' time. Otherwise, there's not going to be a country left, I'm afraid.
That's interesting, though. So Johnson does message you quite
regularly. He gives you lots of great advice. We're friends.
All right.
Yes.
Kemi Badenoch, as ever, great to see you in the studio. If only the other leader could come in Keir Starmer, we're still waiting for you to face a grilling. You see, there's nothing to be afraid of. We're all friends here. Kemi Badenoch, thank you.
Thank you, Camilla.
Coming up next, we're going to be speaking to the research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, Andrew Fox, who's got a very important report out about Hamas in Gaza. Stand by for that. I'll be back in just a jiffy.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's a case of sunny spells and scattered blustery showers today, driest in the south and east, but feeling fresher for all of us. So there is some cloud and rain across the far southeast to start, but that will clear and then plenty of fine and dry weather is on the cards. But out towards the west, that's where we're going to see scattered showers. Some of these are going to be heavy, perhaps thundery, with some hail mixed in too, especially across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and Scotland. Otherwise feeling fresher for all of us, but in the sunshine towards the far south and east, feeling pleasant, highs of 22 degrees. So through Sunday evening then, we hold on to a lot of showers across Scotland with some strong and gusty winds out towards the west. We also hold on to some outbreaks of rain across Orkney and Shetland, gradually clearing. Similar picture across Northern Ireland with showers continuing through this evening, but there will be some late evening sunshine, especially across the far southeast of England through Sunday evening. And then as we go overnight, well, it's a similar picture. We'll see frequent showers pushing in many places across the south and east, staying driest for longest. But otherwise, temperatures, well, it's not going to fall too low tonight, but it will be feeling a little bit fresher to start Monday morning than recent days. So lows around 7 to 10 degrees. So as we start Monday morning, actually plenty of sunshine first thing across southeastern parts of England, but elsewhere it's a similar picture where we'll see a few showers just bubbling up. There will be some spells of rain across the far north of Scotland before more persistent rain edges in to Northern Ireland later through Bank Holiday Monday. Otherwise, temperatures similar. We'll see highs of up to 20 degrees, so feeling pleasant enough in any sunny spells. Bye-bye.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns. Coming soon. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. Joining me now is research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, Andrew Fox. Good morning, Andrew. Lovely to see you. Can we start, because this report you've done is about Hamas and how it's using people as human shields in Gaza. Now, a perfect example of this whole kind of debate was exemplified by the person who went onto the BBC and said that 14,000 babies risked being killed in the next 48 hours because of the Israel offensive. I mean, what did you make of that claim? I think it's from somebody in the UN, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a UN spokesman. And it just exemplifies the disinformation that's flying around this conflict and why it's so difficult to actually get to the truth. The real statistic was that 14,000 children were at risk of malnutrition over the next 12 months if humanitarian aid didn't resume, which it already has. So
clear up the aid issue, because I've heard so much debate about this. Aid isn't getting in. Oh, yes, it is. It's getting in, but it's being taken by Hamas. What's the truth of the matter? Are the people in Gaza being completely cut off from food and water and other essential items or not?
There's two really important things to note here. The first one is that over the ceasefire period in January, February, over 4 months' worth of food went into Gaza. So there should be food for every person in Gaza for 4 months. Mm-hmm. And we know that from UN figures. So we don't have to take Israel's word for it. We can check that with the United Nations ourselves. the question is, if there's 4 months of food in there, why are people starving? And the question...
And do you agree that there are people
There are
starving?
hungry people. There are hungry people in Gaza, no question.
Yeah.
And it's because Hamas is taking the food, and we've seen that just in the last 24 hours with aid convoys getting hijacked by Hamas. And if you go on Palestinian Telegram groups and read what they're actually saying, they're furious with Hamas because they're all well-fed and happy whilst people go hungry and have to look around to try and find flour and water and food.
So when you wrote this report, you must have found out so much about Hamas's modus operandi. Talk us through the approach to this from them, because we know about the use of human shields. We know about them stationing themselves in tunnels under hospitals. Expand on that a bit.
Yeah, of course. So the UN have put out 367 reports about Gaza since the start of the war, and only 4 of them mention this human shield strategy. So what we've tried to do with our report is to be the missing chapter and actually discuss the other side of this, because to look at the world's reporting, you'd think Israel was just randomly throwing missiles into Gaza and hitting whoever they could. Well, there's been very intense fighting. The Israelis have had 3,000 casualties on the ground in Gaza. And Hamas have been absolutely explicit and open about the fact that they want their own people to die. And since my report's been released, in the last week, we've seen leaders of Hamas in Qatar boasting about 50,000 deaths, saying that there have been 50,000 births, they can replace the dead, but the cause will continue. And they're leveraging their own people's blood to get a PR win against Israel. And it's insane.
But it is working, isn't it?
It is working.
I mean, the propaganda is extraordinary, from the kind of marches on the streets of London all across the world, this sympathy for the idea that Israel is responsible for carrying out a genocide against the Palestinian people. Do we know if any of these Palestinian health authority figures are right? I mean, what do we think the death toll is now?
So the broad total is probably right. The sort of 52, 53,000 is probably correct. Over previous conflicts, they have been relatively accurate with this reporting. And since March, they've actually done a lot of corrections. They took 3,600 names off the most recent list. However, what they have also done consistently in every conflict is conceal combatant deaths. And the IDF figures in previous conflicts have generally been right about the number of combatants they think they've killed. So just under half of the number of people that have died are likely combatants at this point. And if you look at the demographics of those who've died, in the 15 to 45 age group, which is where you would expect fighting age people to be, it's overwhelmingly male. It's 72% male in that age group, which, firmly suggests that Israel is targeting combatants rather than randomly targeting civilians.
Yeah, although there's a terrible story in the papers today about a Palestinian doctor who's lost 9 out of 10 children.
Yeah.
And we can believe reports like that. We've got a problem, haven't we, with journalists not really being allowed inside. Then we've had mixed reporting. Has some of the reports been biased because there are links to Hamas between the journalists and, the story itself? But stories like that are true. They do happen, right?
They do. And, of course, it's a war. Appalling things happen in war. And civilians always suffer the most in every single war. And I don't think anyone disputes that at all. But the key point here is that Hamas is exacerbating the deaths of civilians by forcing them into harm's way. So every time Israel strikes a hospital, we can say with relative certainty that Hamas were the target, because we have report after report after report of Hamas's presence in various hospitals throughout Gaza. And just the other day, when they struck near the European hospital, we know that they actually managed to hit a serious meeting of Hamas leadership and actually killed Mohammed Sinwar, who was the leader of Hamas in Gaza. So the fact that Hamas are deliberately trying to stop Israel striking them by hiding in hospitals, and then when they strike near the hospital, they then leverage that for PR, it puts Israel in a position where they can't possibly win that PR battle.
But then that begs the question, this ideal of eradicating Hamas, and even following Donald Trump's dream of making Gaza great again, how likely is it that that can actually happen if you've got Hamas embedded into the community, using people as human shields, not even dressing in military garb, by the way, like just blending into the local residency? That's hugely problematic. And Israel is always going to be accused of disproportionality if, as collateral damage, women and children are murdered.
Well, I think murder is the wrong word.
Or killed.
We have to be very careful with that. Unfortunately, the law of armed conflict tries to put relatively subjective bounds on a very immoral act, which is the killing of other human beings. And that law is not very well understood, and civilian collateral damage is absolutely legal, although tragic and appalling.
Yes.
And when it comes to Israeli strategy, actually, I share your reservations. I think they have two mutually exclusive war goals here. I think they can either get the hostages back or they can destroy Hamas. And the two aren't both going to happen at the same time.
But they'll want to prioritise getting the hostages home. And therefore, what future is there for Gaza if Hamas continues? I mean, often when people say free Palestine, you feel like saying, yeah, from Hamas.
Yeah, but Hamas aren't the only group in there. You know, every clan in Gaza pretty much has its own jihadi group attached. So even if you delete Hamas from the conversation, you still have to work out what comes next. And what I don't think we're going to see, certainly looking at the opinion polling from Gaza, what I don't think we're going to see is a group of administrators or governors who suddenly love Israel. So the fundamental root cause of the problem isn't going to go away even if Hamas are completely defeated. So I think Israel's in a bit of a strategic bind on this one.
All right, well, people can read your report on the Henry Jackson Society website, I'm sure.
Yes, henryjacksonsociety.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew Fox. Coming up next, I'm going to be speaking to the former GB News presenter, Andrew Doyle. He's going to join me to discuss his new book, The End of Woke. You won't want to miss that. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Looking further afield, there's plenty of sunshine on offer and it's going to be feeling warm too across Europe with a few showers around. Now, it is going to be breezy across Madeira and the Canary Islands and running down the coast of Portugal, but otherwise plenty of fine and settled and warm weather around. There'll be a few showers, especially out towards the east, but otherwise temperatures ranging to the mid to high 20s, and that's similar throughout much of the week. Plenty of sunshine on offer, highs of 27.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Got about another month to go.
So why did you decide to do it? Because I'll tell you what strikes me as being particularly interesting is that most people will not be familiar to seeing someone in your garb sitting on a bus. I mean, you will become a talking point. Is that part of it?
Well, the central part is not me, of course. The central part is the Hospital of St Cross, where I live, which is an absolutely wonderful place to live. And I'm thoroughly enjoying myself there.
Can I ask you, Brother John, how much planning has gone into this? Because I have to say, if I was catching a bus all around the country, I'd be very, very anxious about routes, about where I can get on the bus and timings, all that kind of stuff. So how much work has gone in behind the scenes?
Well, I started before Christmas, and of course, the problem is that at that time it was the winter bus schedules, and then we have the spring bus schedules, and we're now moving to summer bus schedules. So it's all a bit touch and go as when you go along as how you get on. But basically, the first thing to do was to establish it was possible to do. So I worked out all the routes round. And I have to say that my bus pass isn't valid in Scotland and Wales, but I have the support of the bus companies, bus operators, who are being very kind and generous and allowing me free passage in Scotland and Wales, where I wouldn't otherwise be covered.
Oh, that's fantastic news. And I have to say, though you look in excellent health and fair fettle, 85...
But I don't have a tattoo, you see. I don't have a tattoo.
GB News, the People's Channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we're in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. Author and former GB News presenter Andrew Doyle is in the studio, not in Paddington, but in Westminster today, because you have a new book out, The End of Woke. Look, I'm going to do something jazzy. I'm always bad at doing this. There it is. Down. There. Love that. We love a little bit of book pluggage. The End of Woke. Here's hoping. First of all, Andrew Doyle, lovely to see you.
You too.
What is woke for the uninitiated?
Yeah, there's about 1 million different definitions, aren't there? I mean, in the book, I define woke in a sentence as a cultural revolution that seeks equity according to group identity through authoritarian means.
Oh, that's very clever.
Oh, well, we could just say quite simply...
Just being irritating.
Just being annoying is one way of putting it, but it's really about pushing your ideas on someone else, a monomania around group identity. The whole world must be seen through this lens, and we're going to make you speak the way that we want you to speak, and we're going to make you do the things we want you to do. That's what it means, really, in a nutshell.
You must respect my pronouns, or you're a bigot.
Quite.
You're now saying it's the end of woke.
Well, I'm exploring the possibility that it might be.
Is it?
Well, I think what I would say, there's an implied question mark at the end of that title,
yes.
But what I would say is that all of the signs seem to suggest that it is on the decline, and certainly in its death throes. You know, if you consider all of the major seismic events over the past few years, such as the Supreme Court ruling that sex in the Equality Act means biological sex and doesn't shift if you waive a certificate about. We've had the Cass review, which of course has resulted in the banning of puberty blockers by the Labour government of all people, by Wes Streeting, who once subscribed to gender identity ideology and came around. We've had Trump's victory in America and his introduction of various executive orders regarding women's rights, men in women's sports, men in women's prisons. We've also had the rolling back of DEI in major corporations, diversity, equity, inclusion policies, such as, for instance, all the big ones like Walmart and McDonald's and Google and Amazon, Meta, Facebook.
Yes.
You know, it's all being rolled back. So all of this is quite huge. You've had various sort of arch leftists quietly removing the pronouns from their bios. All of these signs, to me, suggest that woke, as we knew it, the phenomena that we knew of woke, is certainly going somewhere. It's certainly dying away.
Yeah. We may have reached peak woke.
Yes.
And we're coming out the other side.
Well,
however,
yeah.
While individuals might reflect on it all and go, oh, that was all a little bit silly, generationally, your Zs and your Alphas are likely to be more right on than Xs and Boomers.
Sure.
And second of all, you've got institutions still kowtowing to this stuff. So we've got NHS guidelines going completely against the Supreme Court ruling.
Yes.
We read this morning in the Sunday papers, Whitehall is continuing to make applications for DEI roles, but just calling them something different.
Yeah, they rename it, you know. It's like when the College of Policing said they might rename non-crime hate incidents because they seem to be so unpopular. Yeah, that's what the woke always do, is because their movement has always been about the manipulation of language. So they'll change the language in order to force through the same policies. You're absolutely right, that will happen. I mean, just the other day we had Lady Hale saying that she's been speaking to doctors who say that there is no such thing as biological sex. Well, that's the former president of the Supreme Court saying that, talking to...
Just to remind viewers and listeners, that's Baroness Hale of Spider Brooch fame, who ruled that the prorogation of Parliament under Johnson was illegal.
Absolutely, but she knows how to accessorise with invertebrates. I will give her that, absolutely. But that's the point, is they shift the language all the time. They redefine words while they're pretending that they're not. So things like diversity doesn't really mean diversity. It means everyone has to think the same. Or inclusion actually means we're going to exclude anyone who has a different point of view.
But my point about the generations is this. If we're not around to rail against it, and generations get captured by this nonsense, who's there to stand up? Because it's all very well having a few young people. I keep on mentioning him, Charlie Kirk, but it's a good example because he was in the UK last week and did Ben Leo's show. You know, you get some young voices on the right.
Yes.
And maybe reform, and reform's rise helps with this, but it's not a popular position to be in school or university in the UK, to start espousing Thatcherite principles.
No, but that's hit it. You've hit it there. It's about unpopularity. It's about intimidation. Because actually, if we look at the maths, there's cause for optimism insofar as, I mean, the More in Common initiative, which has studied this and looked into the prevalence of woke attitudes, and I quote them in the book because they found that at the height of woke, it was only ever supported by 8% of the population in the US and the UK.
Really?
Yeah, and the reason for that is, of course, that it's always been a top-down, imposed idea from elites, from people in power, activists have inveigled their way into positions of power
Yes.
and forced it onto people. But what those statistics tell us, really, really cheeringly, I think, is that it's always been a minority view in every generation. The idea that this has been old people failing to adapt to new mores, which are being pushed by the young, is a misapprehension. It's just that young people are scared to express that
This
view.
is what's frustrating. So many times I hear, you know, well, thanks for coming out and saying that. You're very
Yes.
brave. The silent majority agrees with you. You know,
Yes.
back when we were fighting the trans wars, back when we were fighting lockdown, back when we were fighting any other complete and utter nonsense, taking of the knee and all the rest of it. And my argument back would be, well, can you not be silent?
Isn't it frustrating?
It's frustrating.
Yes,
Why is the silent majority so silent? When you're in a majority, there's strength in numbers, just come out with it.
Well, because
they've been cancelled.
Well, it's the activists developed this cancel culture, this retributive system, and it is scary, and they can be effective. And anyone who's worked in any business or corporation where there is an activist in a position of power there knows how frightening they are. It's a bit like dealing with a dangerous dog. You have to watch what you say all the time. Most people just want an easy life, don't they? So I agree with you. I've had all sorts of messages for many years now saying, I love that you say this. You understand that I can't say this publicly. And I share your frustration.
All politicians say one thing in private
Yeah.
and then say, but I couldn't possibly say that publicly.
They do.
And you're like, oh.
It's so annoying.
It's not quite wokery, but just to finish, a couple of different stories. So the Lucy Connolly situation,
Yes.
31 months for a very offensive tweet, but then not as much as being given to some violent and sexual offenders, which is a
Yes.
problem. And then second of all, the stories, I wish I had the Telegraph in front of me, but the stories this morning about a Jewish protester at one of the pro-Palestinian marches basically saying, free Israel or praise Israel. He gets arrested.
Yes.
Some of the people who are rabble-rousing on behalf of Palestine aren't. Then that other story from 2 days ago about the guy with the cartoon mocking Hamas, he gets arrested. Is this another part of this kind
Absolutely.
of two-tier policing? I mean, is it wokery? Or...
It's fundamentally wokery. The reason for that is that the woke movement is predicated on the idea of censorship, on on mistrusting free speech. I don't think it's an accident that when the College of Policing, which trains the police in England and Wales, brought in their non-crime hate incidents, brought in the idea that they should have a database of people for wrongthink. That happened around 2015 with no government mandate. Successive Home Office secretaries tried to stop them. The High Court told them you shouldn't be doing it, but they carried on because it's activist captured, it's activist led.
Yes.
I don't think it's a coincidence that the head of the College of Policing of the time had won the highest award from Stonewall the year before.
Oh, Stonewall rears its head again.
Exactly. So what I think is going on is these people being arrested for tweets, this kind of two-tier policing, which is absolutely true. I mean, in the case of Lucy Connolly, 31 months in prison for talking about the riots. One guy, Philip Prescott, who actually attacked a mosque, gets 28 months in prison.
They will say they're following the sentences guidelines and the law, but we continue to watch that case very closely.
Yes.
Andrew Doyle, your book, The End of Woke, Here's Hoping, is out now. There we are. Oh, I've pointed it to the right camera for the first time in the history of this show.
Getting good at it.
There we are. Right, Andrew, thank you very much. Michael Portillo has hot-footed it to Paddington, having done the newspaper review for me today. And you're going to be hosting a show in about 7 minutes, Michael. What's coming up?
Should Kevin Spacey be banned? We're going to be looking at a spy who was at the top, a British spy who was at the top of the Third Reich and gave us very valuable material in the 1930s. We're going to be looking at lost British operas, and I'm going to be drinking rosé wine because I'm feeling in the pink and the summer is approaching.
Pink tie, rosé is the order of the day. Thank you very much to all of my guests today. I'm going to be back, as ever, at 9:30 next Sunday. Coming up next, we've got Michael Portillo, resplendent in a turquoise suit, but actually, you might want to get a little update on the weather before that. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you for watching today.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We'll see a mixed bag of weather across the UK over the next few days. All of us seeing some rain at times, often quite blustery too. Low pressure is anchored towards the north and northeast of the UK at the moment, quite tightly packed isobars, indicating those blustery winds feeding in from the west and northwest from off the Atlantic. and they'll feed a fair number of showers in across the north and west of the UK as we head into the afternoon. Some of those showers quite heavy towards the northwest, accompanied, as I say, by brisk winds, some hail and thunder in places too. In the best of the sunshine towards the south and east, not faring too badly. Temperatures here into the low 20s Celsius, peaking around about 20 or 21 degrees. 21 there in London is 70 in Fahrenheit. And out of the breeze in the southeast, not feeling too bad, but as I say, quite a few blustery showers the further northwest you go. So to end the day, we'll hold on to quite a few showers across the north and northwest of the UK. Lots of showers feeding in across the north and west of Scotland. Again, some of them quite heavy in nature, accompanied by blustery westerly winds. The best of the sunshine here across the east of the country. Lots of showers too for Northern Ireland, parts of Northern England, in across the Irish Sea, into parts of Wales. And again, one or two of those could be on the heavy side. Further south and east though, a fine end to the day for many here. Yes, quite breezy, but fairly warm in the sunshine. Temperatures here still into the high teens Celsius. As we head into the evening and through the overnight period, further showers are likely to push in across the north and northwest of the UK. Again, very blustery, we could even see some gales in some exposed spots. The best of the clear spells tonight reserved for the south and southeast of the UK. Here quite mild, temperatures generally upper single figures, but we could see a touch of frost towards the north of the UK. Temperatures here locally dipping down to around freezing in some rural spots. As for Bank Holiday Monday, well, again, lots of showers across the north and west of the UK to start the day. Elsewhere, some sunshine early on. The showers become more widespread as we go through the day, and then later we'll see some more persistent outbreaks of rain moving in across the far west of the UK. Quite blustery again up towards the north and northwest. Again, local gales are possible, but in the sunshine towards the southeast, temperatures again into the high teens, which is a little bit above the seasonal average.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Someone is going to win the biggest prize package to date, and that someone could be you, driving away in this Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It has plenty of room for your family of four, comes complete with kitchen, bathroom and all the space you'll need for life on the road. Plus, we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 6